Recording. All right. Hey, Brent, thank you so much for joining us. I'm so thrilled to have you here and have you a part of Advancing Through Adversity so that all the people taking this class can benefit from your wisdom and from your experience. And so why don't we just start off by you sharing a little bit about what your experience has been with grief, the times when you've lost people close to you, and just what that was like for you.
Okay. Well, I'm going to tell you about it. It's kind of a long year. I had back in 2001. It started out, my brother passed away. He had been diagnosed with Hodgkin's, which is a form of lymphoma. But then they do the treatment, and at the end of the treatment, if you still have it, then they call it non-Hodgkin's. So the treatment was over roughly around Thanksgiving in 2000. And we had Thanksgiving dinner at my parents' house. Everything seemed to be going really well. My brother, on the way home, decided to stop at the hospital and check himself in. And he died in January 9th. And he never left the hospital between those times, as things just kept going downhill.
Wow.
So that was the first. And then over the next 12 months, it was a total of about 18 people that I knew that passed. There were suicides, natural deaths, car accidents, you name it.
Wow.
So needless to say, it was like I didn't even have time to process from one to the next. So it was really hard. The last one for me in that series was the son of the lady who led me to Christ committed suicide in her garage.
Wow. And
that one was just as hard as losing my own brother, because that was like losing, a brother by another mother, if you will. I mean, he was that close. We were that close. She literally, because I talked to her through the whole time that I was going through all the other stuff. She knew everything that was going on. Because she was my one person that I could go to and talk about anything with. And when that happened, she almost didn't even call me to let me know. And then she finally did call me, and she gave me like 12 hours to drive from Maryland to Ohio for a funeral. Like, wow. But we still did it. I actually made my roommate drive me because I was in absolutely no condition to be on the road by myself.
Right.
So that's kind of the crux of what happened over that 18 months. There were people that I had led to the Lord that committed suicide in car accidents. Just crazy stuff. So, there were pretty much any time that something like that happened, whoever was involved in it didn't want me to find out until they knew I was at least sitting down and not driving myself, because it was just like boom, 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 boom. It was really hard. And I think what helped me the most was simply being around family, not my physical family, but my spiritual family. People at church that loved me, that knew what was going on. The lady who led me to Christ, talking to them, just through the process. And I think that, it's like I got angry. I got really mad. Okay. There were days that I screamed at God. I cussed God out. I said things to God that I wouldn't say to my worst enemy. You know what I mean? There were times like, God, you're just no good. I can't believe I even ever believed in you. And all of those kind of things. And that was, then I started questioning my salvation and everything else. Like, how can you talk to God like that? And I think that what helped me the most was somebody at church, not a pastor or anything, but one of the older ladies at church. She wasn't like in any position or anything, but we were talking one day, and she just looked at me and she's like, God can handle your anger.
Right.
And you have a right to your emotions.
Mhm.
And I'm actually getting emotional now. But it's like you have the right to your emotions, you have the right to the anger, um, and God is big enough to handle that. And He's not upset with you for being upset. He's not upset with you for the way that you're handling things. He loves you,
Mhm.
and everybody deals with grief differently. And
Mhm.
I think that for me was the biggest. Oh my! At least I know that God is a good God, and
Mhm.
I knew that. But
Mhm.
after going through where you're yelling at God and you're saying some of these things, for Him, for somebody to come back and just say, it's okay.
Yeah.
God doesn't He doesn't expect you to be holy and proper. And when you're going through crap, you're going through crap.
Mhm.
And of course, my phone hasn't rung all day, and it's rung 4 times since we've. So,
That's a really good point, though. And I want to touch on that. That wasn't one
sure.
of the questions I was planning on talking about, but don't you find that your relationship with God is that much stronger and richer and more authentic because of having like gone through this angry, like questioning, confusing time? Like for me, I thought before my mom died, I would have said I trusted the Lord implicitly. I thought that I did. And
Right.
you don't really know until really when something like that happens, that's where the rubber meets the road. And that's where you find out what you really believe and trust or if you don't. And to be able to bring that stuff to God and then find Him exactly the same, at least for me, it's like, I was in the deepest, darkest place and He was there
Yeah.
exactly the same. And that is like the bedrock, the beginning of the, the faith that I stand on now, which I dare say is unshakable.
Right.
Like now I know that it's authentic and it's solid and
Right. I think that for me, it was, I think that I really went from praying the religious prayers, the ones that sound great, they're little great
right,
sound bites, and oh Heavenly Father, I da 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 whatever.
right,
Not necessarily that are like prescribed, like not the Hail Marys and that sort of thing, but
right,
you're just where you just sound it, like, oh, he's super spiritual and in touch.
right,
To where when I talk to God, it's much more just a conversation.
right.
It's okay. In fact, earlier this morning, I was just frustrated with things. It's like, I don't know what's going on. I can't get my mind, to organize what I need to be doing. And I just went and I knelt down by my recliner. I was like, God, I don't have a clue. Just help me figure this out. I didn't pray some, big, long, oh, this is what I need. And then, no, it's like, help me figure this out. Help me get my head on straight.
Yeah,
And after a few minutes, I got up and I went about doing the tasks that needed to be done. And it was, I had clarity.
yeah,
It wasn't that God like came down and said, da, 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 but it released whatever was clouding my head, and I am, more authentic, I think, is just
yeah,
being open to talk to Him.
yeah,
I feel like I can talk to God about anything. I don't hold back any aspect of my life that I'm aware of, from Him. I mean, so yeah, I would say that's probably that really opened a lot of doors for me and inside.
yeah,
What I used to hide this one away and hide that one away. It's like if there are any, I really don't know what they are at this point.
yeah,
I'm not trying to hide anything, and so I think that was definitely a big one.
yeah. What was the one thing or one of maybe several things that really caught you off guard, surprised you? Would you say the anger was something that caught you off guard, or what else about grief and loss were you not expecting that just totally caught you off guard?
I would say that yes. First of all, it was the anger. Um, I really was so angry. It's like, why am I so mad at God? I mean, you know what I mean? It's like, why am I so mad? Because I mean, he set everything in order. And he, all these things happen in this world, and he allows whatever he allows. But a lot of things happen to us because of our own decisions,
Right.
and why am I upset with God for, somebody taking their life? I can't be, that's their choice.
Right.
It's not God's choice. God didn't say, hey, you go do this.
Right.
He's not using us. We're not marionettes on strings, having no
Right.
control. So I think part of it was the anger. Another part of it was just how months later, even years later, you can go through like a wave of grief. It's like you, for me, I'll see something that it's like, oh, my brother would really love that. And then I realize that I can't call him.
Yeah.
And then it'll like, there'll be a sense of grief that comes back in. I feel like I'm more equipped to deal with that now. It's like I just give that back to God, and it's like I love him. I love my brother, and I understand that he's not here anymore. I have faith that I'll be able to see him one day. When that is, hopefully it's still way off in the future. I think I have a lot more to do here on the planet.
Yeah.
But I would say that those two things are probably the biggest surprises: the anger, and then the waves of grief coming so much later in the future.
Yeah. Can you pinpoint when the anger started to turn or subside? Like, was there a specific, because like for me, God had very specific ways that he showed himself faithful to me in the midst of trauma and tragedy that for me were huge to keep my heart in the game and kind of turn it around from anger. Do you have any of those kinds of things, or was it more like a gradual thing for you?
I would say it was definitely gradual for me. As I said, I think with so many happening so fast, I think that it was like, I think each one kind of got healed and changed a little differently, because I wasn't angry about every single one of them. Some of them just made me super sad. Others were, just kind of a joy because I knew they were Christians and they died. My brother was not saved until his deathbed. So, he actually called and asked me to he called my mom and asked her to send me so that I could tell him about the God of the Bible. So I believe that
what a gift that is.
Right. So that kind of gave me, so there were those kind of healing moments there.
Yeah.
And as I thought about, okay, well, we had that conversation. The last night of his life, when he wasn't responding to anybody else and everybody was out of the room, and I showed up because I lived the furthest away. And everybody else was just out of the room because he wasn't responding to anybody. I walked in the room and I leaned over him and I just said, Jesus is Lord. And he opened his eyes, he turned to me and he smiled. And so for me, it was like, that was confirmation that he had accepted the Lord.
Yeah.
And that gave me a lot of hope later. I still had the anger that I had to deal with. I still had the emotions that I had to deal with. As you can see, they still are. I mean, that was 18 years ago, and they still come back when you talk about it, because you love that person, and that's a good thing. I think that people sometimes think that you have a grieving time and then you're done and that's it, no more. You never think about it again, and I just don't think that that's real or practical for the majority of people. Because we have emotions, and things are going to bring up that pain again sometimes, but that pain is less, or I acknowledge that I have the pain of losing my brother, but he's in a better place. I'm in a better place, for it. It doesn't control my life.
Right. And that's
It may control a moment here and there, but it doesn't control my life overall. So when people talk about moving beyond grief, I think that that's more what they are talking about is not that you'll never think about that person again. Because I think that's one of the things that I know when I was, when my brother first passed, one of the pastors told me, you'll get past this. You'll move beyond it. And it's like, I don't want to move. I don't want to ever forget my brother. And that was what moving beyond
how you
grief
interpret
meant to
it.
me.
Yeah. How you interpret
Was that I would forget about my brother or, my friends or whatever. And coming to realize that that's not what actually happens, but moving beyond grief means that it no longer controls you. It no longer has a grip on you, and you're able to actually live your life fully.
Mm-hmm.
With that still there, but not with no power over you.
Absolutely. And that's why I'm so excited for this course, because I believe that people can get to that place way faster than what they realize. And then you're going to stay in that place where no one's here to minimize or deny or pretend like it didn't happen or pretend that it doesn't hurt. I call it pockets of sadness. And I honestly, almost every day I have a pocket of sadness. Like tomorrow for me will be 15 months since Quentin passed away. And I'll see a picture or a song or I'll have something and I have this pocket of sadness and I sit with it and I feel with it. And sometimes it's 30 seconds or 3 minutes, but it doesn't spiral. It doesn't take me out the whole day. I don't stay in that place. And that's really what I've learned to do. And that's what I think, people think it's incredibly difficult or it needs to take years or months of counseling and all this kind of stuff. No, you can learn to sit with it. You can learn to grapple with that they're better off and yet you still miss them here. You can exist with those, dueling realities in a productive, healthy way. And so
and I like what you said, sit with it. Too many people, I think, expect that when that comes, that they either have to discard it immediately,
right?
Because it is going to ruin their life if they think about it,
right?
Or they wallow in it,
right?
They don't just sit with it and go, okay, wow, I really miss this person because this one thing reminded me of them.
Right.
Okay. I can take a couple minutes to ponder on that, to think about that, but then let's move on. Okay. We have other things to do today. Life is good, and move on. And I think that what you were saying is having those, I have that moment, but then I can move on beyond it.
Right.
And it's actually a cherished memory.
Right.
That moment is actually a good memory for you. And I think that people don't always recognize that either, because you saw something that reminded you of somebody you loved.
Yeah.
And you missed them.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Now I know that there's something there that brings me joy because he would have enjoyed that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so I think that that's also a very powerful thing to understand is that those times can be cherished, not just discarded.
Yeah. And I think what you said is so powerful. I think it's part of the trap that people fall in, just like your pastor said, oh, well, you'll move on beyond this. And you were like, no, I don't want to move on. And I think because that truth overextended can actually keep people stuck. There's a lot of people who almost feel guilty having joy and having future plans and having whatever, because it feels like a betrayal to the person that they lost. But like just understanding that you're not, by moving on with your life, by being healthy yourself and productive, it doesn't mean that the loss is any less or that you miss them any less,
Exactly.
Especially parents who've lost kids. I hear that a lot from parents who've lost kids, that they just feel guilty, and so many people said that to me for the longest time. Even now they're like, I don't know how you get out of bed in the morning. And it's like, well, that would be a pretty miserable existence for me.
Yes.
If getting out of bed was the highest level of, so I just appreciate what you said. So I think we extrapolated out some great advice that you got that from the lady at church, that God can handle your anger. Do you remember getting bad advice from anybody? Like what's something somebody said that was either like insensitive or bad advice?
Well, like what that pastor said to me, because I think it was, I don't think it was bad advice, I guess, per se, but the way he said it.
Yeah.
Was basically just get over it.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not something you get over.
Yeah.
It's something that you grow through, and then you get past it. You get past the major pain of it.
Yeah.
But that whole, because for me, like I said, it felt kind of insensitive. It felt kind of you need to forget about it, is kind of how it came across to me. I'm sure the words that I'm using are not the exact words that he used. I just remember that feeling like you're crazy.
Yeah.
Why would you say that? Or the other thing is that people, in general, people don't have a clue what to say to you.
Right.
So they will say things that they never should say.
Bless their hearts.
They don't realize that they're being insensitive. They really don't. They really sincerely think they're trying to help.
Yeah.
So I think that one of the things that it really helped me with is being able to sit with somebody in any situation and allow them to guide the conversation, allow them to guide what needs to be done. It's like I now, when I deal with somebody who, a family member or a friend who had, a death in their family, I can sit with them in a room all day long and not say a word.
Right.
And they're the most, they have been more comforted by just my presence than any word I could possibly ever say to them.
Yeah.
And on TV they say, they're like, we're sorry for your loss. I'm like, yes, so I don't care.
Yeah.
So I tend to not say that a lot of times. I mean, a lot of people call me insensitive, but I would rather just sit there and say, I'm here if you need me.
Yeah.
I have been to many a wake or whatever, and just sit where they can see me, not do anything, not say anything. And a lot of times they feel like I've given them more than all the people who have said 1,000 things to them, because I haven't tried to fix them.
Yeah.
I haven't tried to fix the situation. I have just simply been there in love, letting God do his thing.
Yeah.
And letting them come to me when it was time.
Yeah.
If they wanted to. And like I said, let them guide that conversation. For me, I generally start with, is there anything I can do for you?
Mm-hmm.
I know there's a lot going on right now, and there's people coming and going. Just let me know if there's anything I can do for you.
Yeah.
Being a helpful friend as opposed to being a condolence card.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, because I don't know about you, like none of those words or any of those cards like did anything for my soul. It didn't do a single thing for my soul. But you're reminding me of, I remember the very first day I went back to work, and it was awkward and tense, and I was nervous, and everybody was saying their things. One guy, it was so meaningful to me. He came up to me. He did not say a single word. He just came up to me and hugged me just really long. And he left without saying a word. Like he just came and gave me this very authentic hug and walked away. And that made such a mark on me, to the point of like, this will make me emotional. When I was in that position, I went up to him and I told him like how much that meant to me. Like he was more there for me than all the words of everybody else. And so, that's a whole nother course. I'm going to do an article, a podcast, something about to train people, because people want to help. And if you haven't been through it, you don't really know, and so people make their attempts based on what they think it might be like, and they end up either compounding the hurt or keeping their distance or doing things that aren't helpful. So it's definitely in the future. how to support someone who's grieving, like in ways that are actually helpful and not making it worse. So along those lines, if you could just give one piece of advice, if somebody is dealing with this for the first time in their life, what is the one thing that you would really implore them to do, or a piece of advice that you'd give them?
Oh, wow, that's a harder one. Because it really depends on what they're going through specifically. Every death or loss is different for every person. So it's hard to give somebody a hard and fast, this is what you do. It's a lot easier to say, if you're a believer, reach out to God, reach out to your believing family,
Mm-hmm.
And give them a lot of grace. Realize that they're trying to help. They really are. But as we have already said, they just don't have a clue. They don't know how to help. And even if they have been through it themselves, a lot of times they don't know what's going to help you. They know what helped them.
Right.
So give them a lot of grace, and don't be angry with people who maybe don't show up that you expected we're going to show up, because some of them are grieving more than you are.
Yeah.
And it's hard to believe that. This is my family member, it's not theirs, but you don't understand their relationship or what their experience with death has been in the past. You don't blame people for hiding from you.
Yeah. That's so good. That's so good. I recommend for people to try to find a support person.
Yeah.
Is going to really be there. And I always say, like, if you can, if it was a family member, look outside your family, because the thing that I had to remind myself, even though I was Quentin's mom, like my sister is still really grappling. I mean, that was her nephew, and my nieces and nephew lost a cousin. And so like, they're not as available to support me because they have their own grief that they're working through. And so to really find somebody who you're close to, but is somewhat removed, that they can truly be your support, and you don't have to worry about taking care of their grief or their emotional process, where you can just be whatever you need to be around them. I think that's a huge help, to have at least one person like that in your life that can help walk you through that. So
I think that's why I reached out to my friend who led me to Christ, because I lived in Maryland at the time, and she was in Ohio. I mean, while she knew my brother, she had no relationship with him. So dealing with all the other ones, until it came to her son, and then obviously I didn't reach out to her for support on that. We tried to do some mutual support, with each other there, but. So I agree with you. Finding somebody that's outside of the circumstance, or it's outside of that circle, is probably the most helpful. If you're a member of a community that they were not a member of, that's going to be very helpful for you to reach out to the members of that community. And like you said, I would pick probably just one person. Mostly because you don't want to necessarily have to say it again and again and again, because that, I think, adds to the emotion and makes it sometimes harder to let go, because now I've expressed how sad I am to 5 different people, and now I'm feeling free, and but they're going to think I'm bad because sometimes it's just easier to deal with just one person. I would say at the most 2, and that they'd have to be very close people. And I would make sure that they're in communication with each other. So that they know the fullness of what you're doing, what's going on. That you're not trying to tell, this one, things are going beautiful, and this one, things are sucking. It's human nature. We tend to be a certain way with some people. So if you're going to have more than one, then make sure that that they're in communication with each other. Helps you keep accountable to yourself. It helps you to not hide from yourself as well, because that's another thing that people try to do. when it comes to grief is they'll begin to stuff that part. You shove that emotion away, and that's not healthy either, because then it could be 5 or 10 years down the road, and all of a sudden now something else happens, and because you never dealt with that, because you shoved it, now it's like 20 times or 40 times more intense because of what's going on now. And it doesn't even have to be a loss of a loved one. Maybe you lost your mom 10 years ago, and now you lost your job. Right. And all of a sudden, all of this comes out, because grief is still grief. And you can have grief over losing a job. Maybe it was your dream job, and now you're grieving losing that, but because you never dealt with the other grief, it's like compounded on top of it. So I think that's really important, to make sure that you actually do the work, do go through it, do process it. And again, processing it is not forgetting about it. It's, okay, this actually happened. I can survive this. Let's move forward. Get some friends around me. Let's move. Moving on beyond those things. Another thing that we did as a family, a year after my brother passed, is we actually took a family vacation. My aunt, my uncle, my grandparents, everybody, all of us went on vacation together. Did a cruise that encompassed the day that he passed. And we just celebrated him. And we were together again, because none of us lived near each other. So we never really had that tight support that a lot of closer families would have. So for us, that was also a very healing time. Because we were able to be together kind of on that first anniversary. Let's celebrate him. Let's celebrate who he was, and then move forward.
No, that's a great idea. I've heard people say that too about the first year of holidays, that
they're hard.
It's hard, and a lot of people say, go on a trip, do something else, just at least for the first year, to not be hit with, everything is so traditional, right? And you get hit with all these traditions, but there's a big chunk of the tradition that's missing. And so I did not do that. I wish I would have. Maybe we will for this upcoming. The Christmas last year was really hard for me, but that is all such good stuff. And I think, to your point too, when you were talking about, talking to several people and kind of rehashing it, that's another thing too, is to not feel obligated to answer every phone call, or to be,
absolutely.
Because for me, example with Quentin, a lot of people, I'm the closest thing left. Do you know what I mean? For a lot of people, I am the physical representation of Quentin. Like, I'm the closest connection they have to Quentin. And so I stir up people's grief. When they talk to me, they start crying and projecting their grief about Quentin on me because I'm his mom, And so you really have to be discerning. And I just want to give people permission that, like, you're putting your own oxygen mask on. Like, do not feel obligated to answer the phone calls, and to be very selective of who those people are that you're letting be your support, and have zero guilt or remorse about.
Absolutely.
I know my pastor lost her husband, and she said she didn't answer her phone for a year. For a solid year, she didn't answer any incoming phone calls, because she was really contending for and trying to get back with the Lord and getting healing for her heart. And she could not allow anyone's agenda or day or their own grief process to come and interrupt that. And that is such good advice. But I think we can be concerned about other people and want to be there for and it's like, this is not the time for that. This is the time to take care of yourself and get really good with boundaries and be very mindful who you let speak,
Yeah, I think that's very important. I think that was well said as well, because I know that for me, it's like everybody knew everything that was going on, because I mean, a lot of the things that happened were friends and family within my church. And so it's like everybody was grieving. There were a lot of people that were grieving the same collective. So it was, there were some people who Yeah, you had to avoid. I had to avoid them at church. I mean,
Yeah.
because all they would want to do is sit down and wallow in it, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I can't do that. I mean,
Yeah.
it would, if I did that on a Sunday morning, it was like my whole rest of my week would be shot because
Yeah.
I just couldn't
Recover
get
from
past
that.
their
Yeah.
own. You know, I mean, and it's like they want to talk for hours, not for 2 seconds. You know, hey,
Yeah.
I love you. Sorry. No, it's like let's talk about everything that they
Yeah.
ever did. And
Yeah.
like,
Right.
okay, this guy was 40. I don't have
Yeah.
40 years worth of
Yeah.
time. You know?
Yeah.
So you know, it's I think that's good advice too, is to you know, pick your people and then ignore the rest, you know.
Exactly.
um,
Exactly.
and if they're real friends, they'll totally understand that later.
Yeah.
I mean, they may be frustrated because again, they're trying to help, they want to be there to help.
Yeah.
So it could be a challenge for them, but they're if they love you the way that they should love you, they'll be fine with it. So don't worry about
Yeah.
losing friends or anything like that. I mean, you have to take care of you in that time.
Yeah.
Like you did the oxygen mask thing. I'm a travel advisor, and I actually, airline tickets was my thing. So that's very apt for me.
Yeah.
You know, but it's and the reason they tell you to put your oxygen mask on first is because you have about 18 seconds to get that thing on before you're unconscious.
Wow.
So if you have helped somebody else get theirs on, you probably don't have time to get your own on. And so if you're worrying about everybody else's grief and how they're dealing with their grief, you will never process your own.
Right.
And that'll leave you stuck for a long time.
For a long time. And then coming out eventually, because like you said, it never goes anywhere. So it'll come
Right.
out, you know. So oh, this is all so good. So good. I appreciate it. Like we said beforehand, I so wish that this would have been available, you know, for me when I was walking through my season. And I'm sure to
Oh,
have
yes.
people who've been through this and did it well, you know, not just been
Yeah.
through it, but did it well. And so I so appreciate you being willing to open up your life and your pain and your victory with us so that more and more people can get to that place faster. So thank you.
Absolutely. It was my pleasure.
All right. Honor and a privilege.
Absolutely, my friend. Thank you.